Thank you, Unsan Sunim. And thank you for the opportunity to share the Dharma. Uh, when we take our bodhisattva vows, one of the things we always promise to do is when given the opportunity, we share the Dharma. And I'm happy to do that. And so I was thinking when you asked me if I could give the Dharma talk tonight, I was thinking to myself, what is it that we as practitioners have to keep foremost in our minds in order to relieve our own suffering and the suffering of all others? Shunryu Suzuki called it beginner's mind. Our great ancestor in our tradition, Seung Sahn, called it don't know mind. And I'm going to talk a little bit about don't know mind, beginner's mind, ordinary mind, that concept that helps us let go. I'm sure you've all read it a dozen times, if, like me, you grasp onto these words from Seung Sahn. But in his book, Compass of Zen, he has a exchange with a student. A new student comes in and asks him, Seung Sahn, why are you always having us chant in Korean? Why do we wear these robes? Why do you have this East Asian teaching that's supposed to be important to us? How is this applicable to us in America now? And Seung Sahn answered in a way that cut straight to the heart of his teachings and straight to the heart of Zen. His response, very clearly, I don't teach Korean or Mahayana or Zen. I don't even teach Buddhism. I only teach don't know. 50 years here and there, teaching only don't know. So only don't know, okay? And then I'm sure Seung Sahn in his teddy bear of thunder style just laughed out loud. Because he was a well-known teacher, even at this time. He was a well-known teacher of Korean Zen. And we still call it that. We still call it Korean Zen. But that's not what he said he taught. And what he was trying to teach is what we all have to learn to let go of our suffering. I've told you before, after the terrorist bombings in Indonesia in 2002, in which I was called to duty, I was a consular officer, and I had to identify the Americans who were killed in the tropics, the stench of decaying bodies, the sight of body bags, hopefully covered with ice some days. Some days they ran out of ice. The sights, the smells, the sounds, the mental anguish of people who had lost their loved ones affected me greatly. And I fell into years of PTSD from this. And in an effort to try to let go of my PTSD, in order to put it all down, I began my journey into meditation and eventually to Zen. And I found this teaching from Seung Sahn to be the ultimate release. Seung Sahn's teaching of don't know, only don't know, is this ultimate, uncompromising core of this path we call Zen. Don't know mind is not this state of uneducated ignorance, laziness, passive confusion, or flat out just ignorance. It's none of those things. It's the mind that exists right before we think, before our first inkling of conceptual thought. That's don't know mind. That's beginner's mind. It is completely clear, vast, open to possibilities, instantly responsive, and entirely alive. It is the immovable foundation of our meditation practice and the true expression of our true nature. To practice effectively with this don't know mind, we have to come to understand what don't know actually feels like. As I said before, it's that literal mind before thinking occurs. Before we place value judgments on something, before we drag up history, before we consider if someone hurt us before, if someone pissed us off, if someone made us truly happy. It's before all of those things. It is that silent, luminous space from which all of our thoughts arise. It contains no dullness, no blankness, and no intellectual fog. It's a vivid, direct, and spacious presence. It has lots of different names, as I said. Shunryu Suzuki, who was, I don't know, 15, 20 years older than, maybe 10, 15 years older than Seung Sahn. Shunryu Suzuki died around 1970. But we still have his Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind as a book that is kind of a pointer for all of us in the West of this practice. So some people call this don't know mind that Seung Sahn called it beginner's mind. Some people, like Nagarjuna, called it emptiness or suchness, our original nature, Buddha mind. My favorite old Chan master, Matsu, called it ordinary mind. When we touch this, these are all just different names for this same concept, this same exact reality. When we touch this space of don't know mind, we are able to put it all down. My PTSD that I carried around for years always was this deep rabbit hole where if I let my mind wander into that rabbit hole of remembering the pain, the sorrow, the smell, the sights, I would spiral into this hole that mentally was so hard to get out of. I had to learn to put it all down. We let go of our heavy opinions, our tightly held stories, our hardwired judgments, if only for a single breath, for a single moment. We learn that in our seated meditation. And when we learn we can do it for a moment, we learn we can do it for a minute. We learn we can do it for 15 minutes. We learn in that 15 minutes of seated meditation we did earlier, and we'll do one here in a few more minutes when I wrap this up. We learn to let it all go, to free the mind of judgments. Judgments about ourselves, judgments about our neighbor, judgments about our family members, judgment about politics. We learn to let it all go, to put it down. And when we do put it all down, we see that the suffering stops. That is don't know mind. We become open to new experiences when they occur. We become open to new lessons, to new teachings. Shunryu Suzuki, in his book, Beginner's Mind, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, he used the example of the Heart Sutra. And when you're a brand new Zen student and you come in and you read or you chant the Heart Sutra for the very first time, you have this openness to, wow, what's this all about? What is this emptiness? What is this emptiness is form is emptiness, emptiness is form. What is all this stuff? But the second time you read it, you start making judgments. The third time you read it or chant it, you start digging deeper. And you start saying, oh, I like this part. Oh, I don't really like that part. What are these three world things? And you start looking at it differently each and every time you chant it. Until eventually you chant it and you don't accept any of it as new or old. It just is. But if you can always go back to that first time where you had no judgment, you had no knowledge, you had no history of it, and your mind was open to all these new possible ideas. That's the beginner's mind that Shunryu Suzuki talked about. That's the don't know mind that Seung Sahn talked about. Always going into something wide-eyed, before thought, before value judgment. The radical dropping of our knowledge of all these preconceived ideas and learnings that we think we have. This radical idea of dropping it all is vital because our analytical mind can never solve our fundamental existence of suffering. The conceptual brain is an engine of division. We're constantly creating dualities. Me and you, them and us and them, right and wrong, red and blue, politically, good and bad. We're constantly creating dualities. And that creates comparisons, rigid preferences, and internal conflicts. And the moment we drop our thinking, we drop the fictitious, fragile self that clings so desperately to these types of thoughts. Don't know mind effortlessly cuts through the thick vines of our delusion. When we abandon these fixed views, the heart mind that we chant in the Heart Sutra, that heart mind, instantly becomes flexible, spacious, and most importantly, compassionate. And then we respond to the world around us with compassion. Seung Sahn's mantras of life were pretty much, you can wrap them up into 3 phrases that Seung Sahn always taught. 3 phrases. You remember these, you know all of Seung Sahn's teachings. Only keep, don't know mind is the first one. Only go straight is the second one. And how may I help you is the third. Those 3 phrases that we inherited from Seung Sahn define the Bodhisattva way. They define our practice in Zen and define how we find this nirvana that Seung Sahn mentioned before we did our last practice. Only keep, don't know mind stabilizes our internal compass. It anchors us in the unconditioned space right before our thoughts and judgments pop up. Only go straight drives our external practice. It urges us to keep moving forward with unwavering, wholehearted directness. Together, they mean staying completely with the immediate question, the immediate breath, the immediate moment, without worrying about yesterday and without having anxiety about tomorrow. And when we have reached that sense of peace, we extend our hand and we say, how may I help you? That's the Seung Sahn lesson of Zen. Find your internal peace. Cut through the delusions of judgment, of worry about the past, anxiety about the future. Moment to moment, that clearness right before thought, that's the don't know mind. That's the beginner's mind. That's the ordinary mind. That's the nirvana. The only place we'll find the nirvana that Seung Sahn mentioned. And when we find it, our only possible response is, how may I help you? That's all that's left. A clear mind and a clear heart. So, when you sit to practice, and we're going to do this right now, when we sit for our next 15 minutes of practice, let go. Put it all down. Whatever was bothering you from today at work, wherever you were, whatever your housemate, spouse, neighbor, friend, child pissed you off about today, because it happens. We're all human. We have emotions. We as Zen practitioners learn to put it down. When we put it down, open our minds to that great, spacious before thought, we find nirvana.